Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? In this powerful story, Elin spent her childhood overshadowed by her sister Maya, whose premature birth made her the center of attention. Ignored and undervalued, Elin quietly found solace and passion in antique jewelry, thanks to her beloved grandmother. But when her family suddenly discovered her hidden fortune, their interest quickly turned into betrayal and exploitation. Witness Elin's emotional journey as she learns the profound lessons of forgiveness, self-worth, and true independence. Can money buy family loyalty? Or is true freedom found within yourself? Watch now to uncover how Elin transformed family betrayal into her greatest victory. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more compelling stories. I became invisible the day my sister was born. It's strange how one event can divide your life into before and after. For some, it's marriage. For others, it might be a tragedy. For me, it was the birth of my little sister, Maya. From that moment onward, I seemed to fade away, slowly becoming transparent until no one noticed whether I was there or not. I wasn't neglected in the classic sense. I always had food, clothes, and a roof over my head, but emotionally, I was starved. My parents had always wanted another child, and Maya's premature arrival marked the beginning of their relentless focus on her needs. They transformed overnight into soldiers fighting a war I wasn't allowed to join. At 7 years old, it's hard to comprehend why suddenly you're no longer enough, why your stories stop being heard, why your achievements no longer warrant applause. I quickly learned to withdraw, retreating into a silence that was safer than rejection. I remember vividly the evening Maya came home from the hospital after spending weeks in intensive care. My parents hovered around her crib like worshippers before an altar. My father's gentle hands trembled as he adjusted the tiny knitted blanket. My mother's eyes filled with tears of relief and gratitude. I stood at the doorway of their bedroom, clutching my drawing, a colorful crayon depiction of our family, to my chest. "Mom," I called softly. "I made something for Maya." No answer. "Mommy?" My voice rose slightly, timid yet hopeful. My mother turned, briefly distracted. Her gaze brushed over me without really seeing. "Not now, Elin. Maya needs quiet." I felt the drawing crumple slightly in my small hands as my fingers tightened. I stepped back, retreating silently into the shadows of the hallway. That was the first time I truly understood invisibility. It didn't mean you ceased existing physically, it meant no one noticed you enough to truly care. Over the years, this feeling solidified into a fact of life. Every family meal revolved around Maya's fragile appetite. Every holiday about Maya's careful routine, every conversation punctuated by Maya's latest milestone or medical update. Meanwhile, I watched from the sidelines, blending into the background like forgotten wallpaper. I coped by creating my own secret world, a safe haven hidden in plain sight. And in that quiet isolation, one person became my lifeline, my grandmother, Nana. Nana lived a few blocks away in a small, tidy house filled with trinkets and treasures from her youth. To me, Nana's house was a treasure chest, a magical place where time slowed down and someone finally saw me for who I was. She had a special affection for antique jewelry, and each piece came with a fascinating story: lost loves, hidden fortunes, adventures in faraway lands. It was Nana who first sparked my passion for understanding the hidden lives of these beautiful artifacts, and through them, the hidden depths within myself. "You see this, Elin?" Nana once held up a delicately engraved silver locket, its surface polished smooth by countless touches. "Every piece of jewelry holds a secret, a story waiting to be told. Sometimes, the most beautiful things are hidden in plain sight." "Like me," I whispered without thinking. She paused, carefully studying my face, then gently cupped my chin, lifting it so our eyes met. "Oh, darling, you are a rare jewel, and rare jewels are often overlooked by people who don't know their worth, but never forget your value." Her words resonated deeply, burrowing into a part of my heart that had long since closed off. It was through Nana's gentle guidance that I began to see myself differently, not as the overlooked child, but as someone quietly extraordinary. She taught me the art of observation, patience, and quiet strength. I learned how to appraise not just jewelry, but people too, understanding that true worth was often hidden beneath the surface. Yet despite Nana's unwavering love, the chasm between myself and my parents continued to widen. High school passed in muted colors, punctuated by occasional achievements that were met with distracted nods from my parents and indifferent shrugs from Maya. By the time graduation approached, I had already learned not to expect congratulations. I kept my head down, grades up, and dreams alive, fueled by Nana's stories and the quiet determination that one day, someone other than her would see me clearly. That day finally came with a thick envelope bearing the Stanford University crest. My fingers shook as I carefully slit the envelope open, heart hammering. When I unfolded the acceptance letter, my vision blurred with unexpected tears, not from joy, but from the sudden, painful realization that my first thought had been to show Nana, not my parents. The joy came afterward, bright and fierce, tempered only by the understanding that even now, I was invisible at home. That evening, I sat silently through dinner, holding onto my secret acceptance letter beneath the table. Maya's recital, Maya's recovery from a recent flu, Maya's upcoming school trip, all dissected in excruciating detail. I listened with practiced detachment, nodding at the appropriate moments, waiting for a lull. Finally, I cleared my throat gently. I got accepted into Stanford today, full scholarship. The sudden silence was almost deafening. My parents exchanged startled glances before my mother forced a stiff smile. "Stanford? That's nice, Elin. Isn't that rather far?" "Yes," I replied calmly, already prepared for this predictable response. "Far enough." Maya frowned, looking puzzled. "You're moving out?" "Eventually," I said softly. "In a few months." "Oh." She seemed thoughtful, briefly interested before losing interest again. "Can someone pass the potatoes?" I quietly handed her the bowl, a familiar numbness settling over me. The acceptance letter burned like fire in my lap, my private beacon of freedom, a doorway opening to a life where invisibility might finally lose its grip. Later that night, as I carefully packed the letter away, I glanced into the hallway mirror. My reflection stared back, quiet strength flickering in eyes that had long ago learned to hide their true emotions. "Just a little longer," I whispered to myself, voice steady despite the tightness in my throat. Just a little longer until they realized they lost something they never knew they had. And with that promise, I felt the first stirring of power within me, a quiet certainty that invisibility might have been my curse, but it was also my greatest gift. The days leading up to my departure felt surreal, as if I were caught in a silent film, everyone around me bustling noisily, yet my own voice muted, unable to break through the static of indifference. It was late July, the heat pressing heavily through my open bedroom window. Cardboard boxes lay scattered across the floor, filled with neatly folded clothes, meticulously labeled books, and, most precious of all, my collection of antique jewelry given to me by Nana. Each piece wrapped carefully in velvet cloth, like sacred relics of a hidden religion. I knelt beside one of the boxes, gently unwrapping a sapphire ring Nana had gifted me on my 18th birthday. Holding it up to the fading sunlight, I watched the stone flicker, a brilliant star trapped within deep blue depths. "Jewelry tells the truth, Elin." Nana's voice echoed clearly in my memory, as comforting and steady as always. No matter how cleverly people try to hide their real intentions, jewels never lie. Learn their language, and you'll understand everything. I closed my eyes, briefly comforted by the memory, before carefully placing the ring back in its velvet nest. A soft knock startled me from my thoughts. Surprised, I glanced up as Maya slowly pushed open the door and hesitated in the doorway. She was 16 now, thin and delicate, yet always somehow larger than life in the eyes of our family. "Can I come in?" she asked softly, her voice uncertain, childlike, making me realize just how rarely we spoke alone. "Of course," I replied calmly, quickly sealing the jewelry box. She stepped carefully around the scattered boxes, settling herself cautiously on the edge of my bed. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. It felt awkward, foreign, a silence filled with 1,000 unspoken questions. "Are you excited about Stanford?" she finally ventured, her tone tentative. I paused, surprised by her genuine curiosity. "Yes, I am." Maya nodded slowly, glancing down at her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her fingers nervously tugged at the fabric of her skirt. "Mom says it's a really good school." She sounded proud, when she talked to Aunt Linda about it. I nearly laughed, a bitter reflex, quickly suppressed. "Did she? She hasn't really said anything to me." Maya looked startled, her gaze lifting quickly to mine, a faint flush coloring her pale cheeks. "Oh, I thought she did." I shook my head slowly, forcing a smile I didn't truly feel. "It's okay, Maya. I've gotten used to it." She seemed uncomfortable, guilt briefly flashing across her delicate features. "I never noticed, Elin. Not really. I guess I never had to." I exhaled softly, a gentle sigh escaping despite my attempt to suppress it. "You didn't have to notice. Nobody did." Her brows knitted slightly, confusion mingled with the guilt. "You make it sound like you weren't even here, but you were." I leaned back against the wall, stretching out my legs, gazing thoughtfully at the ceiling, contemplating my response carefully. "Sometimes being here isn't enough, Maya. You can exist without really mattering. Trust me, I know." The honesty startled even myself. For years, I'd carefully hidden such feelings behind practiced silence. Now, facing departure, those quiet truths rose stubbornly to the surface. Maya was silent, visibly grappling with my words. "I'm sorry, Elin," she finally whispered, eyes glistening slightly. "I should have seen it." I offered her a small smile. Not forgiveness exactly, but acceptance. "It's okay. It's just the way things are." She seemed unsatisfied, her brows still furrowed. But after a pause, her expression shifted, turning curious. She gestured to the jewelry box beside me. "You're bringing Nana's jewelry with you?" "Yes," I said warmly, feeling the protective instinct rise within me. "They mean a lot." Maya's eyes lit with sudden interest, and she leaned forward. "What do you like about them so much?" It was the first genuine question she had ever asked me about myself, and the unexpected attention felt strangely precious. Carefully, I reached into the box again, drawing out the sapphire ring. I held it toward her, letting the stone catch the evening light. "Each piece holds secrets. Nana taught me to see beneath the surface, to find hidden meanings," I said softly. "Jewelry can't pretend. It's honest, beautiful in a way people rarely are." She took the ring gently, eyes widening with appreciation. "It's amazing. How come you never showed me before?" I hesitated, then chose honesty again. "I never thought you'd care." Maya frowned slightly, returning the ring carefully to my hand. "I care more than you think." For a fleeting moment, we shared a connection, a fragile bridge stretching tentatively across the chasm of years. But before either of us could say more, my mother's voice drifted sharply from downstairs, interrupting like the crack of ice breaking beneath our feet. "Maya, your medication! Hurry up!" Maya stood hastily, pulling away and shattering the brief intimacy. "I better go," she murmured, eyes slipping from mine as she retreated to the door. "Maya?" I called softly after her. She paused, turning back slightly. "Thank you for asking," I said quietly, sincerely. She nodded faintly, offering a shy, uncertain smile before disappearing into the hallway, leaving me alone once again with my silent room and unanswered questions. That night, I couldn't sleep. Moonlight spilled silver through my window, illuminating Nana's treasures on my dresser. Rising quietly, I reached again for the sapphire ring. Slipping it onto my finger, I held it to my heart, letting its cool weight anchor me to the present moment. My eyes burned slightly, not from tears, but from a quiet recognition deep within, a sense of clarity blossoming beneath layers of neglect. I understood now. Maya wasn't responsible for my invisibility, nor even fully aware of it. The truth was harsher, simpler. My parents had chosen blindness, and Maya was simply the excuse. In their eyes, I had ceased to matter, a casualty of their selective focus. But Nana saw me. Maya had glimpsed me. And somewhere deep within, I knew that Stanford represented more than just an escape. It was my chance to step out of shadows and define myself clearly visible at last, entirely on my own terms. The jewelry on my dresser sparkled softly, a quiet affirmation of my resolve. I felt the first stirrings of a deeper strength, one forged in silence, sharpened by neglect, ready to meet whatever awaited beyond the familiar invisibility of home. Just before dawn, I returned the ring carefully to its box, whispering softly to the empty room, "It's time to become visible again." Stanford was more than just a university. It was my sanctuary, a gateway into a world that finally matched the quiet intensity I'd always carried within. From the moment I arrived, stepping onto the sunlit campus with its winding pathways shaded by tall, ancient oaks, I felt something shift inside me. It was subtle, yet profound, like taking my first true breath after years spent underwater. Move-in day was bustling, the air filled with excited chatter and anxious laughter as freshmen scrambled to unpack boxes and claim their spaces. My parents hadn't come. They said Maya had a routine checkup, conveniently scheduled for today. Instead, Nana stood beside me, small but sturdy, watching quietly as I organized my half of the dorm room. I placed my jewelry box reverently on the shelf above my bed, close enough to reassure me whenever homesickness might threaten my newfound independence. "You're ready for this, Elin," Nana whispered softly, placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "You always have been." I turned to her, gratitude and anxiety mingling in my chest. "What if I'm not, Nana? What if everything that held me back wasn't just them, but me?" She smiled gently, her blue eyes sharp with wisdom born of long experience. "They underestimated you. Don't make the same mistake, sweetheart." Her words lingered as she left, leaving me to the unfamiliar comfort of my solitude. The first few weeks flew by, blending into a rhythm of classes, study groups, and brief, shy introductions to classmates. Unlike at home, here invisibility was a choice, not a sentence. I found myself opening up slowly, cautiously at first, then more boldly as I realized people actually wanted to listen. In discussions, my quiet insights drew respectful nods. Professors noted my thoughtful analyses. Gradually, my voice grew stronger, surer as no longer hidden behind silence, but woven confidently into conversations about art history, cultural artifacts, and the subtle complexities of jewelry appraisal. One afternoon, as I sat alone beneath a sprawling tree, sketching an antique necklace in my notebook, someone's shadow fell over me, blocking the sunlight. "You're the jewelry girl, right?" Startled, I glanced up to find a young woman grinning brightly down at me. Her hair, a cascade of fiery curls, framed a face open with friendly curiosity. "Sorry, I'm Tessa." She introduced herself quickly, offering her hand. "We have art history together. I noticed you talk a lot about jewelry and antiques. Your insights are always so interesting." "Thanks," I replied hesitantly, accepting her hand. "I'm Elin." She smiled wider, dropping onto the grass beside me. "You seem like you've got some deep connection to that stuff. What's the story?" I paused, carefully choosing my words. Sharing personal truths felt risky, yet here was someone genuinely curious, someone who might understand. Taking a breath, I decided to trust the instinct pushing me gently forward. It's something my grandmother taught me. Every piece holds history, secrets, hidden truths. Tessa's eyes lit up with genuine fascination. That's beautiful, like a treasure hunt. Exactly, I nodded, feeling a rush of excitement. People often overlook valuable things because they don't take time to truly see. But if you learn their language, you discover their worth. She leaned forward eagerly. Can you teach me? Her simple request stunned me. Until now, I'd never imagined myself as someone others might seek out for knowledge. The quiet pride warming my chest felt entirely new, like sunlight after endless rain. I'd like that, I responded softly, smiling for perhaps the first time with real openness. Let's start with this. I carefully opened my jewelry box, revealing a delicate gold bracelet, its intricate patterns gleaming softly. Tell me what you see. Tessa stared closely, fascinated yet puzzled. It's beautiful, but old? I laughed softly, feeling a warmth bloom inside. It's Victorian, probably late 19th century. Each engraving means something specific. See these tiny roses? They symbolize secret love. The woman who wore this had a hidden story, a love no one else knew about. She gasped quietly, captivated. How do you know all that? Jewelry never lies, I replied, repeating Nana's wisdom with pride. It reveals what people hide beneath the surface. Tessa smiled broadly, leaning back comfortably against the tree. You should totally start a jewelry club or something. This is fascinating. A club? The idea felt strange, exhilarating, something I'd never dared to consider. Yet why shouldn't I? This was Stanford. Here, invisibility wasn't forced upon me. Maybe this was how visibility started, not loudly or dramatically, but quietly, honestly, one connection at a time. That night, alone in my dorm room, I called Nana, eager to share my small victory. Her voice crackled warmly through the phone, filling me with comfort and encouragement. I'm proud of you, darling, she murmured softly. You see, all it takes is finding people who can truly see you. As our conversation ended, I sat quietly at my desk, gazing at the bracelet lying gently in my palm. For the first time, I felt the profound weight of Nana's words truly settle inside me, not just intellectually, but deeply, viscerally. I could be seen, not just by her, but by others too. This realization burned away layers of doubt, lighting something within me that felt distinctly like hope. Outside my window, stars blinked gently against the velvet sky, each a distant jewel holding its own secret. Nana had always said the stars reminded her of diamonds scattered carelessly by an ancient goddess, beautiful precisely because they weren't trying to be seen, and yet they were impossible to ignore. I realized now I didn't need to force attention. I simply had to shine, quietly but unmistakably, and the right people would notice. The sapphire ring on my finger gleamed softly in the desk lamp's glow. I closed my eyes, letting the truth of my newfound visibility settle into every cell. This was my beginning. The threshold finally crossed. Invisible no more. Stanford was only the beginning. After graduation, armed with a business degree and a sharp eye honed by Nana's wisdom, I quietly opened a small jewelry appraisal and authentication office in a modest building downtown. It wasn't glamorous, just a narrow office tucked between a vintage bookstore and a bustling cafe. But it was mine, a space where invisibility became my greatest advantage. My reputation grew subtly, whispered from client to client in discreet circles. Within a few short years, I became the person entrusted with secrets, family heirlooms, disputed inheritances, hidden treasures revealed in wills. My discretion and accuracy became my trademark, and soon enough, prominent figures quietly sought my expertise, willing to pay generously for confidentiality. Yet, while my bank account steadily expanded, my personal life remained understated and private. I bought a cozy yet elegant home near the coast, carefully furnished with pieces that resonated with the quiet dignity Nana had instilled in me. Friends were few but genuine people like Tessa, who remained close over the years, reminding me that visibility didn't require loudness, only sincerity. Everything changed one November evening, the sky painted gold and crimson by the setting sun, when a sudden phone call shattered my carefully preserved privacy. "Elin? Is that really you?" Maya's voice sounded distant, a little shaky through the receiver. I nearly dropped the delicate antique brooch I'd been carefully examining. "Maya?" I replied, struggling to mask my surprise. It had been nearly 2 years since we'd last spoken. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," she insisted quickly, though her voice trembled. "I was just thinking, it's Thanksgiving next week. Mom and Dad keep mentioning you, wondering how you're doing. Maybe you could join us?" I hesitated, instinctively guarded. My parents had barely acknowledged my existence since Stanford. My financial success remained hidden by choice. Yet something about Maya's voice tugged gently at old, vulnerable strings inside me. "Are you sure?" I asked quietly, skepticism mixing with a faint hope I couldn't suppress. "Yes, Elin," she replied earnestly, almost pleading. "We're family, right? Family should spend holidays together." Her words carried a peculiar weight, simultaneously hopeful and ominous. Still, some instinct deep within urged me forward. Perhaps naive curiosity, or the deep-seated desire to finally be recognized for who I'd become. "All right, Maya," I said slowly. "I'll come." Thanksgiving arrived swiftly, bringing an early chill to the air. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as I drove toward the familiar yet distant family home. The neighborhood appeared unchanged, streets lined with tidy houses where families gathered warmly behind lit windows. The house loomed ahead, its porch warmly lit, an illusion of welcome that briefly tempted me to believe everything had changed. Taking a steadying breath, I stepped out of my car, smoothing the elegant cashmere coat I'd chosen carefully, a subtle statement of the woman I'd quietly become. The front door opened before I reached it. My mother stood there, smiling nervously, slightly strained as she took in my sophisticated appearance. Her eyes scanned my coat, the subtle flash of sapphire on my finger, the leather handbag discreetly branded. Recognition flickered briefly across her face, replaced quickly by a forced warmth. "Elin, honey, you look lovely," she exclaimed, drawing me into a stiff hug. "Come in." I moved quietly inside, immediately noting familiar scents: roasting turkey, cinnamon candles. Maya appeared in the doorway of the kitchen, eyes brightening with relief as she embraced me warmly. "You came," she whispered gratefully, clinging a moment longer than expected. Dinner began cautiously, a delicate dance around unspoken history. Small talk flowed awkwardly, peppered with polite questions about my life, questions carefully vague, cautiously avoiding the deeper truths beneath my calm replies. "So, Elin," my father finally spoke, his voice casually curious. "Maya mentioned you run a jewelry shop or something?" "Something like that," I replied softly, calmly meeting his gaze. "Is it doing okay?" he continued, clearly attempting neutrality but failing to mask underlying interest. "It's doing well enough," I replied evenly, allowing only a faint smile. Maya suddenly interjected excitedly, unable to suppress her curiosity. "It's more than just okay. Elin's famous. She's one of the top jewelry appraisers on the West Coast." Silence crashed heavily onto the table. My mother stared openly, shock and sudden calculation clear in her gaze. My father leaned forward, interest sharpened, almost predatory. "Famous?" my mother repeated faintly, eyes glinting strangely. "I had no idea you were so successful." "I didn't feel the need to announce it," I said quietly, feeling the familiar defenses tighten around me. "Still," my father pressed, voice gentle yet calculating, "that must mean you're doing very well financially." I hesitated, carefully masking the discomfort rising in my chest. "I manage. A quick, calculating glance passed between my parents, subtle yet undeniable. My stomach tightened instinctively. "It's wonderful news," my mother finally said, smiling widely, overly bright. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart." Her praise felt hollow, brittle, like thin ice ready to crack. In that instant, the cold realization sank into me like a stone. Their sudden interest wasn't in who I'd become, only in what I possessed. After dinner, I slipped quietly into the backyard, seeking air. Maya soon appeared beside me, face flushed with shame and discomfort. "I'm so sorry, Elin," she whispered miserably. "I shouldn't have said anything." "Why did you?" I asked quietly, meeting her eyes without judgment. Just weariness. "I was proud of you," she admitted, voice breaking softly. "You did everything alone. Everything I couldn't. I wanted them to see it too, but I didn't realize they'd react this way." I sighed gently, suddenly tired. "You meant well," she nodded sadly. "But it wasn't fair. It never was." I gazed toward the distant stars, heart heavy with old disappointments, tempered now with deeper clarity. "No, Maya, it wasn't. But fairness stopped mattering to me a long time ago." "You deserve better," she murmured softly. I turned, facing her squarely, compassion mingling with newfound certainty. That's why I left. In that quiet moment beneath cold starlight, something shifted permanently inside me. I saw clearly what I'd always known, yet hesitated to fully accept. My family's love was conditional, rooted deeply in convenience and self-interest. Yet here I stood successful, quietly powerful, independent despite their neglect. "You're different now," Maya whispered finally, a note of respect mingling with sorrow. "Yes," I agreed calmly, gently but firmly. "And I won't apologize for that." Inside the house, muffled laughter drifted out, alienating in its artificial brightness. I straightened slightly, silently reclaiming my strength, deeply aware that visibility meant embracing truths previously ignored. "Come on," I said softly, turning back toward the warmth and pretense of the house. "Let's finish this." The phone calls began the very next day. At first, they were subtle, masked in polite curiosity or casual conversations. My mother called on a sunny Saturday morning, her voice deceptively warm as she asked how business was going, gently steering the conversation toward finances and investments. My father followed suit, casually mentioning a great new business opportunity he'd discovered, something vague involving real estate. Each conversation left a bitter aftertaste, an uncomfortable truth I struggled to ignore. My sudden value to my parents hinged solely on the weight of my wallet. It wasn't long before subtlety dissolved completely. "Elin," my mother's voice crackled sharply over the phone one afternoon. "We've fallen a little short this month. Maya's medical expenses, your father's car repairs, it adds up. You understand, right?" I clenched the phone, fingers white around the receiver. The request veiled thinly beneath familial obligation felt like a blade gently pressed against my throat. Yet something inside me hesitated, desperate to believe this might be an isolated incident. "Of course," I replied softly, resigned. "I'll send something over." "One more thing," she added quickly, her voice artificially sweetened. "We've been invited to Aunt Linda's Christmas party. Do you mind lending us your car for the weekend? Ours is unreliable." I closed my eyes briefly, exhaling sharply. "Sure, I'll drop it off Friday." Her thank you felt empty, automatic. I hung up, feeling strangely hollow, knowing deeply I had just crossed a dangerous line. Yet old habits died hard, and some part of me still clung to the hope they would finally see me not as a resource, but as their daughter. Weeks turned into months, and the pattern repeated, each request growing bolder, less considerate. Yet even as resentment quietly built inside me, I continued sending checks, loaning cars, buying appliances they couldn't afford themselves, all justified by an aching wish for approval, recognition, love. Everything shattered one rainy evening, just as I finished reviewing an exceptionally valuable estate appraisal in my office. Maya appeared unexpectedly, drenched from the rain, eyes red and desperate. Her presence startled me, signaling something had drastically changed. "Elin," she blurted out breathlessly. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know how bad it had gotten until today." "Maya, slow down," I said gently, guiding her to a chair. "What's wrong?" She covered her face, taking a shaky breath before speaking clearly. "Mom and Dad have debts, Elin. A lot of them gambling, credit cards. They've been using your money for months, not just for bills. They've been bragging about how easy it is to get you to pay for everything. I didn't realize. I swear I didn't know until I overheard them today." Her confession struck like a sudden wave, drowning me instantly in cold betrayal. My throat tightened painfully, humiliation burning my cheeks. "How long?" I managed to whisper, heart pounding. "Months," Maya admitted quietly, shame shadowing her features. "I never thought they'd go this far." I turned away, eyes fixed blindly on the window, rain streaking like tears down the glass. My chest felt crushed beneath a weight of bitter truth. I had willingly become their victim, blinded by the desperate hope that I'd finally be seen. "Elin, please say something," Maya begged softly, her voice cracking. I turned back, gaze calm yet cold, resolute in a way I had never felt before. "They've taken enough." The next morning, I entered my bank to close the accounts I'd opened solely for their use. My hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from a newfound strength burning steadily in my veins. Afterward, I texted my mother a simple message. "I know everything. There will be no more money." Her frantic calls began within minutes, ringing persistently until finally, irritated, I answered. "Elin, honey, let's talk this over," she pleaded, voice trembling falsely with emotion. "Your family. You wouldn't abandon your family, would you?" I paused, feeling the familiar tug of obligation clash sharply with the bitter taste of betrayal. "You abandoned me first," I replied softly, voice steady, tinged with quiet fury. "You saw nothing but my wallet, and now that's gone too. Elin, goodbye, Mom." I hung up gently, definitively, the quiet click echoing like the final stroke in a symphony. Yet the drama was far from over. Days later, I arrived at my office to find my parents waiting outside, desperation etched harshly on their faces. My father stepped forward aggressively, voice sharp and demanding. "You can't just cut us off, after all we've done." "All you've done?" I echoed softly, voice cutting coldly through his bravado. "Ignoring me, using me, betraying my trust?" "You're selfish," my mother suddenly shouted, her eyes blazing with anger. "After everything we sacrificed for you." "Sacrificed?" My voice rose sharply, startling even myself with its intensity. "You never saw me. I was invisible, a ghost in your house. Now that I'm visible, you only see money. Tell me, what exactly did you sacrifice, Mom? Because I remember clearly nothing." Their silence was answer enough, heavy with shame yet unwilling to admit the truth. "Leave," I said quietly, firmly, signaling security with a subtle nod. 2 guards stepped forward, politely escorting them away despite their indignant protests. I watched, detached yet filled with deep sorrow as they disappeared from view. Maya lingered behind, eyes pleading forgiveness she knew she didn't deserve. "I'm sorry, Elin," she whispered brokenly. "I know you are," I replied softly, gently, yet distant. "But sorry isn't enough anymore." She nodded slowly, turning away with quiet resignation. As the doors closed behind her, I sank into my chair, heart racing, emotions tangled in confusion and relief. Yet beneath the pain lay something unexpectedly powerful, a profound sense of freedom, deeper than any I'd ever known. In that moment, something within me shifted irrevocably. I saw clearly how far I'd come, not simply from the quiet invisibility of my past, but from the chains of their emotional manipulation. Finally, I understood. Visibility came at a price, but freedom, true freedom, was priceless. I opened my jewelry box on the desk, carefully lifting Nana's sapphire ring. Holding it to the dim office light, I admired its brilliance, clarity, and quiet strength qualities I recognized now in myself. Jewelry never lies, Nana had told me, and neither would I. From now on, my truth would shine clearly, impossible to hide or exploit. "Thank you, Nana," I whispered softly into the quiet office. "I finally see what you saw all along." And deep within, I knew the real battle had just begun. But for the first time, it was a fight I was ready to win. In the months following that explosive confrontation, I threw myself into my work with relentless precision, using every waking hour to rebuild the careful walls of solitude and strength my family had nearly torn down. Each appraisal, each client, became a lifeline, anchoring me to reality as my private grief and simmering anger slowly transformed into quiet resolve. But life had other plans. One chilly evening, I received an unexpected message from Tessa. Her voice was strained, awkward, as she gently broke the news I never anticipated hearing. "Elin, have you seen it yet? Maya started her own jewelry appraisal business. She's promoting it all over social media." I froze, the porcelain teacup halfway to my lips, a sudden rush of shock gripping my chest. "Maya did what?" "Here," she whispered softly, voice gentle yet strained with disbelief. "I'll send you the link." A moment later, my phone vibrated gently in my hand. With a strange sense of dread, I opened the link, watching numbly as Maya's smiling face filled my screen. She stood proudly behind a sleek glass counter, brightly lit displays of antique jewelry surrounding her, a glossy mimicry of the business I'd spent years quietly building. My fingers tightened reflexively around the phone, bitterness burning my throat. Scrolling through the site felt surreal, as if watching someone else wear my own carefully tailored clothes, awkwardly forced and ill-fitting. The descriptions were vague, inaccurate, clearly designed for quick profits rather than genuine understanding. Each clumsy imitation felt like a betrayal, a crude mockery of Nana's teachings, the one thing I'd held sacred through every hurtful moment. I exhaled slowly, trembling slightly, fury battling against deep, familiar sorrow. Days passed, and curiosity drove me to visit Maya's new shop incognito. I entered cautiously, the door chime tinkling softly above my head, the polished showroom sterile and oddly lifeless. Maya stood behind the counter, confidently greeting customers, her expensive outfit sparkling under artificial lights. But her smile faltered when her eyes caught mine, panic briefly flickering beneath carefully rehearsed charm. "Elin," she stammered, approaching hesitantly. "I wasn't expecting you." "Clearly," I replied quietly, glancing deliberately around. "This is unexpected." She forced a smile, smoothing her blouse nervously. "Just thought I'd try something new. You inspired me, you know." "Inspired?" I echoed gently, a note of disbelief coloring my voice. "Or provided an easy blueprint to copy?" Maya's gaze hardened briefly, pride clashing visibly with embarrassment. "You don't own the jewelry business, Elin. Anyone can do this." "True," I replied softly, meeting her eyes calmly. "But it's not about ownership, Maya. It's about integrity, expertise. Jewelry appraisal isn't something you fake overnight." She straightened defensively, the mask of confidence slipping slightly. "We'll see about that." I left quietly, saddened rather than angry, aware that Maya's desperation to replicate my success was less about ambition and more about seeking validation, something our parents always withheld. But soon enough, her hasty ambition unraveled exactly as I expected. Weeks later, another message from Tessa interrupted my evening again, this time urgent, frantic. "Elin, Maya made a terrible mistake. She misappraised a collection worth hundreds of thousands, maybe more. She's being sued. It's all over social media." The news was both predictable and devastating. My heart sank painfully at the realization of how desperately Maya had tried and failed to step out of a shadow she'd once cast upon me. I drove immediately to Maya's apartment, arriving to find her curled miserably on the floor, surrounded by scattered papers and empty wine glasses. She stared numbly ahead, humiliation radiating visibly from every defeated angle of her body. "I failed, Elin," she whispered bitterly, not looking up. "I tried to be you, and I ruined everything." "You didn't have to become me, Maya," I murmured gently, kneeling carefully beside her. "You only ever needed to find yourself." "I thought if I could just prove," she began brokenly, tears tracing slow paths down her cheeks. "I wanted them to see me as valuable, like they finally saw you." My heart twisted painfully, recognizing myself in her anguished words. Quietly, I took her shaking hands into my own, the weight of our shared wounds sinking heavily between us. "They never saw me, Maya," I whispered softly, voice aching with quiet strength. "They saw money, but we don't have to keep living their definitions." Maya looked up slowly, eyes wide with understanding. "You hate me, don't you?" I shook my head gently, a bittersweet sadness threading through my voice. "No, I could never hate you. I just wish you'd known sooner you were enough without copying anyone else." She leaned forward quietly, her head gently resting on my shoulder. We sat silently, two sisters separated by a lifetime of misunderstanding, yet finally brought together by shared grief and clarity. After a long silence, I stood slowly, guiding her carefully to the sofa. "This will pass, Maya. Mistakes are painful, but necessary. They're how we become who we really are." She looked up timidly, a faint, hopeful curiosity breaking through her despair. "Can you forgive me?" I nodded slowly, sincerity quiet yet profound. "I forgave you the moment I walked in." As I left Maya's apartment, stepping back into the crisp night air, something inside me felt lighter, freed from bitterness, resentment, and invisible chains of expectation. Her failure hadn't brought me joy, but clarity. True victory wasn't in outshining those who had wronged me. It lay in quiet authenticity, integrity that couldn't be replicated or stolen. Back home, I gently lifted Nana's sapphire ring from its velvet bed once again, its familiar weight comforting in my palm. I held it to the lamplight, letting its quiet, flawless brilliance remind me of everything I'd learned and everything I'd overcome. Jewelry never lied, but people could learn to tell the truth, no matter how painful or how late. In that clarity, I finally understood. Revenge was meaningless, success hollow, if not paired with genuine forgiveness and self-acceptance. Maya's failure was my greatest lesson, a reflection of paths I could have chosen, bitterness I could have nurtured, but instead, I chose freedom. True freedom. Quietly, reverently, I whispered into the stillness, "Thank you, Nana, for teaching me to see clearly, even in darkness." And in that simple gratitude lay a strength I had never known, a strength born from invisibility, betrayal, resilience, and ultimately, compassion. Visibility had come at a cost, but its reward was richer, deeper than any I'd imagined. The unshakable freedom to be unapologetically myself. The aftermath of Maya's professional collapse was quieter than I'd anticipated. The scandal quickly faded from public interest, replaced by other dramas, leaving her business a silent casualty. Still, the impact on Maya lingered, evident in her withdrawn gaze and hesitant movements. She had lost more than money. Her pride, confidence, and sense of identity were all fractured, scattered across the ruins of her failed attempt to mirror my life. Yet, something surprising emerged from this chaos. For the first time in our lives, Maya and I talked not superficially, not through guarded comments or cautious civility, but honestly, rawly. I visited her frequently, offering silent support while she picked through the remnants of her dreams, slowly understanding the person behind the shadow she'd chased so blindly. One evening, as we sat quietly on her balcony, watching the sunset bleed softly into the horizon, Maya finally spoke the question I'd sensed hovering unasked between us for weeks. "Elin, how did you forgive me so easily?" I glanced over, seeing vulnerability stark in her tired eyes. My answer came gently, thoughtfully. "It wasn't easy, but forgiveness wasn't just for you, Maya. It was also for me. Holding on to resentment was poisoning me, not punishing you." She nodded quietly, absorbing my words carefully before speaking again. "Do you ever think things would have been different if I hadn't been sick, if I hadn't stolen their attention?" I took a deep breath, choosing honesty even as it reopened old wounds. "You never stole anything. They chose to overlook me. I don't blame you for that." She sighed deeply, guilt and relief mingling in the sound. "I spent so long convinced you'd hate me forever. I thought becoming like you would make me worthy of forgiveness." "You never needed to become me," I replied gently, reaching for her hand. "We both deserved better, Maya. Neither of us should have had to fight to be seen." Her eyes welled slowly, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. I squeezed her hand gently, allowing the silence between us to heal, quietly yet profoundly. Days passed, slowly rebuilding trust through countless small conversations, late-night phone calls, and occasional shared laughter. Maya's genuine attempts at introspection gradually transformed our interactions from hesitant to heartfelt, creating a fragile yet unmistakable bond. Meanwhile, my business continued thriving quietly, steadily. Offers poured in to collaborate with major auction houses and museums. Invitations for guest lectures arrived frequently. But through every success, I held Nana's quiet teachings close. Visibility and success weren't goals themselves, they were outcomes of authenticity, integrity, and resilience. One bright morning, I sat quietly at my desk, contemplating a particularly compelling offer to partner with a renowned international museum. The opportunity would cement my reputation globally, yet it required extensive travel, pulling me away from everything familiar. My thoughts were interrupted by Maya's gentle knock. She stepped carefully into my office, looking more like her old self, soft yet determined. "Am I interrupting?" I smiled softly, shaking my head. "No, come in." Maya hesitated briefly before sitting across from me, her posture straight, eyes serious. "I have an idea. It might sound crazy, but hear me out." "Okay," I replied curiously, leaning forward slightly. "I want to restart my business," she announced boldly, yet humbly, "but not appraisal. I want to learn restoration and design. Something different, something that feels right for me. Not copying you, not competing, just being me, but I'll need guidance." Surprise flickered briefly through me, replaced swiftly by quiet pride and deep respect for her newfound courage. "Are you asking for my help?" I asked softly, warmth coloring my voice. "Yes," Maya replied quietly, yet clearly, determination burning gently in her eyes. "I want to earn it, not just because we're sisters, but because you trust me again." Her words resonated deeply, awakening something tender within me. Here was the bridge I'd spent my life unconsciously waiting to cross, the genuine sisterhood. The authentic bond rooted not in obligation but mutual respect and support. "All right," I said gently, firmly meeting her gaze. "Then let's do this right together." And so began a new chapter. Slowly, yet purposefully. Each day after work, Maya would visit, and we would sit side by side, studying antique jewelry, learning intricate restoration techniques. Her natural creativity flourished under patient guidance, her confidence growing as she discovered hidden talents uniquely her own. As Maya's new path emerged, I felt my own journey shift subtly yet meaningfully. Helping Maya rebuild didn't weaken me, it enriched me, expanding my vision beyond solitary success toward genuine collaboration, empathy, and purpose. My work gained a deeper resonance, authenticity I hadn't realized it lacked before. Months passed swiftly, quietly filled with meaningful exchanges, late-night discussions about life, family, ambition, and forgiveness. Each conversation healed fragments of past wounds, gently reshaping our shared future. And as Maya's first collection, beautiful, unique pieces reflecting her own distinctive style emerged confidently, I knew we'd both grown stronger through shared pain, quiet courage, and mutual forgiveness. One evening, as we prepared her collection for a small exhibition, Maya paused thoughtfully, studying me carefully. "Elin, do you think Nana knew? Do you think she saw all of this coming?" I smiled softly, gently clasping the familiar sapphire ring on my finger, feeling Nana's presence quietly yet unmistakably. Nana saw truths we couldn't yet understand. She believed we were both stronger than the circumstances we faced. "She'd be proud, wouldn't she?" Maya asked quietly, a hopeful question lingering softly between us. I nodded slowly, heart swelling gently with quiet certainty. She'd see us clearly now, not just visible, but finally whole. Later that night, alone in my room, I placed Nana's sapphire ring carefully beside Maya's first completed jewelry piece, a delicate pendant crafted with meticulous care. The pairing felt symbolic, a quiet testament to the power of genuine connection, forgiveness, and the beauty found in shared strength. Whispering softly into the silent room, I voiced the deepest gratitude I'd ever known. "Thank you, Nana. Thank you for teaching us both to truly see." In that quiet moment, surrounded by gentle darkness and fragile beauty, I finally understood visibility's greatest lesson. True strength lies not in standing alone, but in choosing compassion when it would be easier to remain hidden. And for the first time, invisibility was no longer a memory of pain, but a quiet foundation for genuine visibility, authenticity, and freedom. Time moved gently forward, bringing quiet moments of clarity and peace, something I'd spent most of my life believing belonged to others but never quite to me. Maya's jewelry exhibition, modestly yet elegantly staged in a small gallery downtown, marked not just her rebirth, but mine as well. The event was warmly attended, guests quietly admiring her creations, each piece whispering its own intimate story of redemption and courage. I watched from a corner, pride swelling quietly within me as Maya stood confidently before visitors, gracefully accepting praise she'd finally learned she deserved. She'd stepped out from my shadow completely, not by force or imitation, but through honesty, vulnerability, and authenticity. It was a revelation, one that deeply moved me. As the exhibition wound down, Maya approached quietly, slipping her arm gently through mine. "Thank you," she whispered softly, eyes bright with gratitude and newfound confidence. "You did this yourself," I reminded her warmly, pride clear in my voice. "No," she corrected softly yet firmly. "We did it together. You taught me that I was worth seeing." Her words struck gently, deeply, unlocking a quiet sense of fulfillment I'd unknowingly sought for years. That night, lying awake in bed, I understood the truth I'd long ignored. Genuine visibility wasn't about external recognition or financial wealth. It was about the courage to stand honestly, unapologetically within oneself. My thoughts drifted naturally toward Nana, the quiet teacher who had first revealed this truth through gentle whispers and patient guidance. On impulse, I rose, carefully opening the small wooden chest beside my bed, removing Nana's sapphire ring and holding it reverently. Its deep blue stone sparkled gently, reflecting the moonlight, resonating with quiet strength. The next morning, I made a decision. I drove quietly to the ocean, Nana's favorite place, where she'd often brought me to share quiet wisdom beside the endless waves. Standing at the edge of the gentle surf, the wind soft against my skin, I held the sapphire ring carefully, feeling its comforting weight. Thank you, Nana, I whispered softly, emotion rising gently in my throat. For everything. Slowly, I slid the ring onto my finger, a symbolic gesture I'd previously resisted, finally embracing fully who I was and who I'd become. Its presence felt right, a quiet affirmation of the journey I'd completed. Back home that evening, another unexpected phone call interrupted my quiet reflection. I answered cautiously, heart tightening briefly at my mother's voice, hesitant, uncertain. "Elin," she began carefully, voice trembling slightly. "I don't know where to start. I suppose I want to apologize." I remained quiet, heart beating gently yet resolutely. "I realize now," she continued slowly, vulnerability raw and unfamiliar in her voice, "how much I failed you. How much we both failed you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to say it. You deserve better than we gave you." Her words settled softly, painfully, yet with unexpected warmth. "Thank you for saying that," I replied softly, without bitterness. "I appreciate it." "Perhaps," she murmured hesitantly, almost pleadingly, "in time we might rebuild something?" I hesitated thoughtfully, knowing clearly my answer. "In time, maybe, but not today." Silence stretched gently, understanding bridging the gap quietly between us. "I understand," she finally whispered, sincerity clear. "Just know, I finally see you, Elin." We ended the call gently, respectfully, neither forgiveness nor resentment, simply clarity. It was enough for now. Later that night, I sat quietly on my balcony, overlooking the city lights flickering gently below. Maya's necklace rested softly against my skin, a delicate, graceful gift she'd created specifically for me, symbolizing our bond rebuilt through honesty and strength. The sapphire ring sparkled quietly beside it, Nana's wisdom forever near. I'd spent so long chasing visibility, believing it lay in others' recognition, approval, or praise. Yet here, in quiet solitude, I finally grasped its deepest meaning. Visibility was choosing, again and again, authenticity over acceptance, courage over convenience, compassion over resentment. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Maya entered quietly, joining me on the balcony without words, quietly gazing at the distant horizon. "Everything okay?" I asked gently. She nodded, thoughtful. "It is now. I was thinking. Maybe Nana saw something no one else did, something hidden in both of us. She knew we'd find each other eventually, right?" "Yes," I replied softly, smiling gently at the memory of Nana's patient eyes. "She knew long before we did." Maya smiled warmly, breathing deeply, visibly at peace. "We made it, Elin. Both of us." I nodded slowly, gratitude filling me with quiet strength. "Yes, we did. Yes." Together, we sat silently beneath stars softly glittering above. Each distant jewel a gentle reminder of journeys completed and bridges rebuilt. And deep inside, a quiet truth resonated warmly. Visibility isn't given by others. It's claimed quietly, courageously, by believing in your own worth long before anyone else does. For the first time in my life, I felt genuinely seen, not because others finally noticed, but because I had learned, slowly yet profoundly, how to clearly see myself. It was a warm, clear spring morning when I stood quietly in my bedroom, the soft dawn light gently filtering through sheer curtains, bathing the room in shades of delicate gold. Today marked exactly 1 year since Maya's first jewelry exhibition, exactly 1 year since I'd finally stepped fully into visibility, no longer obscured by shadows of the past. I moved quietly to the antique mirror on my dresser, gently touching its ornate carved wooden frame. Nana had given it to me years ago, a quiet gift I'd always cherished but rarely used to truly see myself. But this morning felt different, sacred, almost ritualistic. Slowly, deliberately, I looked into the mirror, eyes meeting their own reflection clearly, honestly. The woman looking back felt both familiar and new, her gaze clear, calm, quietly powerful in a way I'd once believed impossible. For a long, quiet moment, I studied the reflection thoughtfully, seeing clearly every hidden scar, every quiet strength I'd once overlooked. Maya's delicate necklace rested softly at my throat. Nana's sapphire ring sparkled gently on my finger symbols, not only of resilience and forgiveness, but of genuine love and connection reclaimed from shadows. And as I stood quietly, peacefully, something deep within me shifted gently but unmistakably, a quiet understanding, profound yet simple, resonating deeply in the silence. I was finally enough. The gentle buzz of my phone interrupted my quiet reflection. I glanced down, smiling softly at Maya's name on the screen. "Morning," I answered warmly. "Good morning." Maya's voice sparkled gently with excitement. "Did you hear? The museum confirmed your partnership. You'll travel, lecture, appraise pieces from all around the world. This is huge, Elin." I smiled gently, calmly, no longer surprised by joy or success, but quietly embracing it as a natural, beautiful part of the life I'd finally allowed myself to truly live. "I heard," I replied softly. "It feels right." Maya hesitated briefly, then asked carefully, her voice tenderly sincere, "Are you happy, Elin? Truly?" My reflection in the mirror smiled gently, eyes bright, quietly certain. "Yes, truly." "Good," Maya said softly, genuine relief clear. "You deserve happiness." I paused thoughtfully, voice quiet yet profound. "We both do, Maya. And finally, we've both found it." Ending our call gently, I stepped back quietly, returning my gaze thoughtfully to the mirror. Its surface reflected softly, truthfully, everything I had finally learned to see, every quiet strength, gentle courage, painful struggle, genuine triumph. And at last, with gentle conviction, I whispered softly to the woman I'd become, "You are visible. You are free." Stepping quietly from my bedroom, I left the reflection behind, knowing deeply that my journey wasn't merely about emerging from shadows into visibility, it was about claiming, quietly yet powerfully, my own truth, my own story, my own worth. Outside, the morning sun gently warmed my face, birds softly singing promises of renewal. I took a deep breath, inhaling peace and gratitude. Everything I'd endured, the painful invisibility, the quiet resilience, the battles fought both externally and internally, had led me here, to a life I'd never fully believed was possible. Crossing the threshold of my front door into the gentle brightness of a new day, I finally understood Nana's wisdom fully, deeply, irrevocably. Jewelry never lied, and neither did the mirror. Visibility wasn't granted, it was chosen, quietly, bravely, repeatedly, until the choice became second nature. Walking forward gently into sunlight, toward the future waiting quietly, patiently ahead, I knew clearly, deeply, profoundly. My greatest victory wasn't in overcoming invisibility, but in finally, quietly embracing who I had always truly been.